System. Author Selzer-McKenzie. First, a glossary of turnaround terms. Hyphen. This one comes from a professional, and I haven't tested it myself. Lack of time. A series is a sequence of bets, usually one in which the player is in the hole and working towards a profit. You'll hear the term recovery series from time to time, and it tells you that every losing series is assumed to be reversible. There's also an animal called a winning series, more about that later. Don't worry about losing series. Turnaround will run out of money once in a while if you impose a sensible stop-loss limit, but it won't happen often. The LTD is a pair of figures you will need to keep in your head at all times. If you can't handle simple mental arithmetic, this method is not for you. If you are a blackjack player who counts cards, relief is at hand. Turnaround is a whole lot easier and more effective than counting and is virtually undetectable by pit cops. LTD is short for loss to date, and the first figure in the pair tells you how many chips you're currently down according to the special tracking method the system uses. The second figure indicates the correct next bet, NB. Basically, your NB stays the same after a loss and increases according to a fixed formula after a win. The steal is a process by which the final profit when a recovery series is resolved is deliberately inflated. When you win, say, 3 units, you steal 1 unit before deducting the win from the LTD and calculating the value of the next bet, NB. Example, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, +1, +3, +4, -5, -5, -5, +5, +6, +7, +5. The LTD after the win that ended a streak of 9 losses was 9,3, because the single unit won was not deducted from the loss to date. The NB jumped from 1 to 3 units for reasons I will explain in a moment. The LTD for the series changed as follows: -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, +1, 9,3, +3, 7,4, +4, 4,5, -5, 9,5, -5, 14,5, -5, 19,5, +5, 15,6, +6, 10,7, +7, 4,5, +5, EOS equals end of series. Jumping and pumping. The jump uses the first figure in the LTD to set the value of the NB. My recommendation is that you do not divide the LTD by less than 6 to get the revised NB, meaning that a 7-bet win streak will end the recovery series. Don't misunderstand the thinking here. I am not saying that 7-bet hot streaks are frequent or even necessary to turn around success. But I am saying that your next bet must always be guided by full knowledge of how much you must win in order to turn a recovery series around and come out with a profit. The pump is another device to maintain the value of the NB at a level that makes recovery attainable. Oscars, +1 after a win, rule is pathetically inadequate. It won't get you where you need to go unless the dealer is having a very bad day. When the game starts going your way, you must press as hard as you can, keeping in mind that if you overdo it, a reversal will do you very serious harm. The pump percentage I use is 20%, meaning that after the first win in a potential hot streak, you multiply the previous bet by 1.2 to get the NB. The first win after a losing streak, the previous bet when you're trying to figure the pump, was set by the jump, and now it's time to press a little harder. Here's a sample sequence with the steal, the jump and the pump all in play. 4 to 9,8, -8, -8, -8, +8, 6 to 6,11, +11, plus 13, minus 16, 60,16, minus 16, plus 16, 61,19, plus 19, plus 23, 21,22. In this sequence there were 5 losses and 6 wins, but to get you to the opening LTD of 49,8 the house advantage must have been running high beforehand. Generally, you should expect to lose more bets than you win. The casino depends on that. The trick is to make sure that you win more when you win than you lose when you lose, and that's what turnaround is all about. In this example, the 5 losses averaged minus 11 units, and the 6 wins averaged plus 15. That's a good thing. Note that when the first figure in the LTD dropped to 21, the NB became 22 and not 23, times 1.2, 28, applying a rule that the NB after a win can never be less than the LTD divided by 6 or more than the LTD plus 1 unit. More about that in a moment. Next, having. This is exactly what it sounds like. At a certain point in a losing streak, turnaround requires you to reduce further potential losses by cutting your bet down the middle. Again, balance is important here. Do it too soon or too often, and your bet will bounce up and down like a yo-yo gone wild, punching you further into the hole with each downturn. The having rule limits the ploy to bets in double figures and requires you to hold off until you have lost 2 whole bets in a row or, in blackjack, have seen a double or split raked into the dealer's tray. What you're trying to avoid is the damage from a volley, 60,10, minus 10, 70,5, plus 5, 66,11, minus 11, 77,6, plus 6, 72,12, minus 12, 84,6, plus 6, 79,13, and so on, and since paired losses are about half as frequent as isolated ones, the 2 lost bets rule works well. If you can get away with it, keep having until the NB gets down to single digits, remembering that the lower you go, the bigger will be the jump when you finally win a bet and have to recalculate the NB as LTD/6. Here's another example. 169,58, minus 58, minus 58, minus 29, minus 15, minus 8, plus 8, 330,55. It's quite a jump from 8 units to 55, more than a parlay, that's for sure, and in blackjack particularly. You should limit yourself to no more than 2 bet reductions if the pit cops are on heat. The dump. The final turnaround oddity is the dump. Translation: run for the hills. This is a concession to the tendency we all have to beat a safe retreat when a dealer gets hot or our luck runs cold. Computer simulations presume that a player will stick it out through thick and thin, betting bravely onward regardless of repeated punishment and waiting patiently for a negative trend to reverse itself. Human beings just don't play that way. Take a walk if the house gets, say, 10 bets ahead. I'd rather not apply the dump at all, but human nature, mine, at least, doesn't permit me to bet on and on like a senseless robot when I'm getting my butt kicked. So, it makes sense to regulate the bailout process. A guiding principle of turnaround is to provide a rule to cover every situation that could possibly arise in a game of chance, relieving the player of the agonies of indecision. Okay, that makes me a robot after all, but not a senseless one, since all of the system rules are based upon logic and common sense. When turnaround made its debut on the internet in April of 1997, several math-mad computer mavens leaped forward to offer to write source code for simulations which would prove that this particular method of progressive betting is no better than any other. After months of toing and froing, caused by the inability of all these experts to apply the turnaround rules correctly, The most persistent among them pronounced that my method had an expected win rate of over 99.5% or about the same as a small martingale. Secondly, the martingale or double-up method is doomed as soon as it hits a losing streak of a dozen bets or more, whereas turnaround freezes the bet in response to a loss and requires it to be repeatedly halved after a certain point. So, a martingale bettor trying to win at a casino with a 3,000-unit house limit will run out of options once a dozen consecutive losses require that his next bet be 4,096 units. He's 4,095 units in the hole, and the math guys say that if he reduces his next bet to 3,000 units and wins, then he's still in trouble. The turnaround rules. Here are the system rules, step by step. 1. Bet the minimum, your own or the table minimum, on the first decision in a series. I recommend $5 units to start with, meaning that if the table minimum is $25, your first bet is 5 units and will go up or down in increments of $5. Don't be tempted to use a table minimum above $5 as your increment, raising your bet from $25 to $50 to $75 and so on at a $25 table. 2. Win, bet min +1, and be ready to follow the turnaround win progression, +1, 2, 2, 4, 7, 11, 16, 22, 29, 37 etc. Lose, bet the same amount. At a $25 table, the progression will be +5, 6, 6, 8, 11, 15, 20, 26, 33, 41 etc. When the win progression ends, set the next bet, NB, at 2 units, except when a split/double increases the loss to more than the initial bet, in which case freeze the NB at that point. Example, +1, +2, +2, +4, +7, +11, -16, +2. Example, +1, +2, +2, +4, +7, +11, -32, +16. 3. Any win after a succession of losses invokes the steal principle, whereby a single chip is deducted from the win before the loss to date, LTD, is revised. 4. The LTD consists of 2 figures, best expressed as N1, N2. The first figure, N1, is the amount down at any point, and is inflated by the steal. N2 is the amount out, meaning the value of the next bet, NB, out, on the table. Think of the LTD as down, out, and the mental chore of revising it after each outcome will quickly become second nature. Example, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, +1, 7 down, 2 out, +2, 6,3, -3, -3, +3, 10,4, +4, 7,5, +5, 3,4, -4, -4, +4, 8,5, +5, 4,5, +5, EOS equals end of series. HA 16% but TA wins 8 units equals 16% of action of 50 U. 5. A win after 1 or more losses also invokes the jump, whereby NB is calculated by dividing N1, the inflated loss to date, by a predetermined amount. I recommend that if N1 is 20 or less, NB equals N1/4. If N1 is more than, greater than, 20 and less than 51, NB equals N1/5. If N1 greater than 50, NB equals N1/6. 6. After a win, NB must never be less than the first figure in the LTD, N1, divided by 6 or more than N1 + 1. If EOS is achieved, NB always falls back to the minimum. 7. After a win to which the jump has been applied, use the pump to press the NB further. This increase should be 20%, rounded, meaning that it has no effect until the previous bet, PB, hits 8 units. 8 times 1.2 equals 9.6 equals 10. Example, 99,17, minus 17, minus 17, minus 17, plus 17, 134,23, plus 23, plus 28, minus 34, 119,34, plus 34, 86,41, plus 41, 46,47, plus 47 equals EOS. Note that 41 times 1.2 equals 49.2 equals 49, but the final turnaround bet was reduced to 47. That your next bet, NB, must never exceed down +1. 8. Use having to limit potential losses as soon as you lose 2 successive bets of 10 units or more, and keep having until NB reaches single digits. In blackjack, start having if a double/split, 2 or more hands, in effect, costs you 20 U or more. Blackjack players conscious of dealer/pit scrutiny should not use having more than twice in any sequence. Example, 99,17, minus 17, minus 17, minus 9, plus 9, 134,23, minus 23, minus 23, minus 12, minus 6, plus 6, 192,32, minus 32, minus 32, minus 16, minus 8, minus 8, plus 8, 271,46, plus 46, plus 55, plus 66, plus 79, 28,29, plus 29 equals EOS. 9. Having does not apply for win progression ends with a lost double/split but takes effect if another double-digit loss is suffered. Example, +1, +2, +2, +4, +7, +11, minus 32, 17,16, minus 16, minus 8, plus 8, 34,10, plus 10, plus 12, 14,14, plus 15. 10. If, as above, raising the NB to match down +1 will increase it by not more than 10%, make the adjustment in the hope that EOS will be achieved. Otherwise, a series will be extended for an extra 1 or 2 bets, which is contrary to our objective, wrapping up a recovery series in as few bets as possible before reverting to a minimum bet and starting a new series. In our example above, a win at 14,14 would have given us an LTD of 1,2 because of the steal. 11. Use the dump to stop play in a damaging location, transferring the LTD in full to a new deck, shoe or table whenever it's convenient. Experienced gamblers know that trends exist, and that a persistent downturn will sometimes seem unbeatable. The basic rule is to quit playing and move as soon as the second of 2 successive losses takes the LTD above 100 units, then 200, then 500, 1000, 2000 and so on. Don't dump if having has already begun, or within 5 bets of the last move. An alternative is to track wins and losses and dump as soon as the house gets, say, 10 bets ahead of you in any series. For instance, if the house has taken 16 bets versus your 6. The advantage of this method is that it's more consistent than the original variable trigger approach. 12. In blackjack, play strictly according to basic strategy. There are about as many variations on the BPS, basic playing strategy, as there are experts on the game, but if you stick strictly to whichever book you choose, you will reduce the house edge to substantially less than 1%. Here's the BPS I recommend. Notes: with 4,4 against 5 or 6, split of DAS, otherwise D. Some experts, usually card counters, recommend standing with 7,7 against 10 and standing with 16 against 2, but it's a bad idea. Never, ever, take insurance or even money, which is the same thing. There's a case to be made for doubling a 8 or a 9 against 4 to 6, but it's a very aggressive play. Customizing, turnaround. Many of the rules of turnaround can be adapted to suit the style of the individual player. For example, since this deal drives the required bet rapidly upward in a downturn, you might feel that once it has been applied often enough to guarantee a reasonable win when EOS is eventually achieved, it should be abandoned after a certain point. Let's say you decide to ditch the deal once the LTD hits 50. Here's how a tough sequence of bets might look. -1, -1, -1, +1, 3,2, -2, -2, -2, -2, -2, -2, -2, +2, 16,4, -4, -4, -4, -4, -4, -4, -4, -4, -4, +4, 49,9, -9, -9, -9, -9, -9, +9, 86,15, +15, 72,18, +18, 55,22, +22, 34,26, -26, -26, -13, +7, 93,16, +16, 78,19, +19, 60,23, +23, 38,28, +28, 11,12, +12, EOS. Here, the house won 27 bets out of 40, but turnaround bested an HA of 14/40 equals 35% by exploiting upturns and backing off during downturns, overcoming the fact that losing streaks were longer and more frequent than winning ones. The 27 losses cost the player a total of 106 to 3 units for an ALB, average losing bet, of 6 units. The 13 winning bets recouped 178 units for an AWB of 14 units, kicking the HA all the way back to breakfast time and making a profit of 15 units against horrendous odds. If we replay those same hands with the steal abandoned about halfway through, the sequence looks like this: -1, -1, -1, +1, 3,2, -2, -2, -2, -2, -2, -2, -2, +2, 16,4, -4, -4, -4, -4, -4, -4, -4, -4, -4, +4, 49,9, -9, -9, -9, -9, -9, +9, 85,15, +15, 70,18, +18, 52,22, +22, 30,26, -26, -26, -13, +7, 88,16, +16, 72,19, +19, 53,23, +23, 30,28, +28, 2,3, +3, EOS. The effect in this case was simply to reduce the turnaround bet, the last bet needed to end a recovery series with a profit, from 12 units to 3 units. Since the critical bet was a winner, that was a bad thing, but if it had lost, the next bet, NB, would also have been much smaller, thus confronting the player with a greatly reduced exposure. The recommended levels for the steal: -1, the jump, LTD/4,5,6, and the pump, PBX 1.2, could all be said to be aggressive, and a cautious player could limit his exposure while still following the turnaround rules and principles. Keep in mind that the more timid the play, the longer it will sometimes take to exploit an upward trend and end a series with a profit before falling back to a minimum bet. When we reduce to the steal above, we cut the EOS win from 15 units to 6, a high price which a conservative player might consider worth every penny. Note that in the first version of the sequence, the recommended approach, turnaround won 15 units on action of 341 units, achieving a player hold of 4.4%. A 1-chip flat better would have lost 14 units on total action of 40 units, giving the house a hold of 35%. If you play turnaround for long enough, even if all you're willing to do is try it out at home, you will learn that making money from sequences of bets in which the house had the clear edge is commonplace. The concept of stealing 1 unit before figuring out the loss to date and the related next bet is unique to turnaround in spite of the fact that reward proportionate to risk is as reasonable and sensible a goal in gambling as it is in any other money-making endeavor. In contrast, turnaround applies the requirement that the longer a recovery sequence, or series, lasts, the greater should be the final profit. I have experimented with applying the steal to lost bets as well as winning ones, and naturally the end result is always an even greater profit. The downside is that when wins are few and far between, the strain on the bankroll is greatly increased. For example, consider a TA sequence which plays out like the one used at the very beginning of this article, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, +1, 9,3, +3, 7,4, +4, 4,5, -5, 9,5, -5, 14,5, -5, 19,5, +5, 15,6, +6, 10,7, +7, 4,5, +5, EOS equals end of series. With the steal applied to all bets, win or lose, the same sequence would be as follows: -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, +1, 18,3, +3, 16,4, +4, 13,5, -5, 19,5, -5, 25,5, -5, 31,5, +5, 27,6, +6, 22,7, +7, 16,8, +8, 9,10. Stealing after wins only earned us a profit of 7 units and delivered a resolution after a series in which the house won 12 bets and we won 7 bets. The more aggressive approach gave us a profit of 10 units but left us in need of another win to achieve turnaround. The effect of applying an all-round steal, then, is to win more chips after facing greater risks. Either way, you can be confident that turnaround will consistently hand you a profit after you have lost more bets than you won. The red/black test of turnaround. If you're among the doubters, try this little test. Take the king of hearts out of a single deck, creating a stack of 50 cards in which there are 26 blacks and 24 reds, and black therefore has an advantage over red of 4%. Shuffle them rigorously, then turn them over one by one, using the turnaround method to bet that the next card will be red. The HA will vary before each card is dealt, depending on how many blacks and reds have preceded it, but you can realistically expect a 4% house edge before the first card is turned over, and the same house edge before the 50th card is exposed. Time and again, you will finish the deck with turnaround substantially in profit in spite of a clear, absolute house advantage. The red/black test will sometimes hit the end of the deck in the middle of the recovery series, but then you do just as you would in a casino and roll over the LTD to the first hand of the new shoe. Lastly, a clarification of the dump. Walking away from a costly string of losses is not merely an option for a real gambler, as opposed to someone who bases his knowledge of casino games upon computer simulations. It's a fact of life. Everyone does it, and everyone should do it. It's a difficult thing to regulate because so many influences push us to the point where we don't want to play anymore against a particular dealer or at a particular table. To name a few: dealer hot streaks, prognos pit bosses, incompetent and/or inebriated players, fatigue, boredom, hunger and a stressed out bladder. Proponents of computer simulations argue that their pale imitations of casino games are mathematically accurate, but in truth they can't be. No simulation exists which can imitate more than one or two components of real casino play at a time, and their most critical omission is human nature. I don't recommend changing your bet or varying basic blackjack strategy on a whim because one of the primary principles of turnaround is that consistency is critical to long-term profit. But I do encourage you to back off from a game the moment you begin to feel uncomfortable or pessimistic. Never, ever play if it doesn't feel right. There's no way a computer simulation can ape a gut feeling that tells a player when to quit, and it's difficult to devise rules to cover that situation. Turnaround dump will sometimes save your bankroll and will sometimes pull you out of the frying pan and into the fire. The one advantage of a computer simulation is that it enables you to test a variety of stratagems against the same set of outcomes, but even when analysis of a million plays indicates that you would have won more without the dump than with it, you can't say, "Okay, I'll never walk away from a game again," because uninterrupted betting is an impossibility in real life. I suggested earlier that one way to dump is to walk away from a shoe, or a series, if the house pulls 10 bets ahead of you, winning 15 bets out of the first 20, for example. At -10, you won't have to move very often, whereas at -5 you will be abandoning non-profitable situations pretty frequently, taking your LTD with you to another location and resuming play per the system rules. Personally, I favor frequent moves and natural breaks, they alleviate boredom and keep me alert, and reduce the temptation to wobble off the rails and temporarily depart from the rules, always a no-no. Bottom line, it's up to the player. Wrinkles. I can't overemphasize the wisdom of the individual player tailoring turnaround to meet his/her needs and circumstances, so long as the key elements are not totally disabled. I didn't offer specific suggestions in the original presentation on my website because I was concerned that the system was already quite complicated enough, and email from all over the world confirmed that assessment. Now that turnaround is, in effect, retired from the internet, I can cover this topic in greater detail. Anyone who has bet against a game of chance for just a few hundred outcomes knows that while skilled money management can beat the odds for very long periods of time, eventual damaging streaks in favor of the house are inevitable. Turnaround damage control is effective but not infallible, and absent a very large bankroll, it is sometimes wise to help it out a little. A technique I call breakdown would take an LTD of, for example, 19,3x $100 units and break it up into 4 separate targets of 19,3x $25 units. It will take much longer to achieve turnaround, at least 4 times longer. But the strain on the bankroll will usually be substantially reduced. Breakdown assumes the use of a couple of other turnaround concepts, multi-level betting, and target betting, both of which also further complicate the system but greatly enhance its effectiveness, and extends the idea of the dump. a natural break in play in response to a downturn, into something called deferred betting. The idea of multi-level betting is to enhance the system's response when the house edge is biting extra hard. Assuming a startup at $5 units, you would apply the dump when the LTD exceeds 100 units and make a quick conversion to $10 or $25 units before resuming play against a new shoe. For example, an LTD of 117,19x $5 would become 59,10x $10, or 24,4x $25, the idea being that the value of incremental increases goes up and the likelihood of achieving turnaround is often improved because fewer consecutive wins are needed. In essence, use of the multi-level conversion puts a little more power behind the pump, which increases the next bet, NB, by 20% after every win until the LTD plus 1 ceiling is reached. Say you're at 117,19x $5 and you log a win, bringing the LTD down to 99,23 and the NB to $115. At 59,10x $10, a win would take the LTD to 50,12 and the NB to $120, and at 24,4x $25, the LTD would drop to 21,5 and the NB would therefore be worth $125. Small differences, maybe, but small differences are what turnaround is all about. Target betting is a sneaky profit builder which is, in essence, deferred betting without any actual prior losses. It exploits the fact that the mathematicians are right on the money when they remind us that the cards, dice or whatever have no memory and so are unaffected by bets that have been won or lost to date. Usually, turnaround starts betting in a new series with a clean slate and the opening wager is therefore 1 unit and the LTD is, in effect, 0,1. But what if we open play with a fictitious LTD of, say, 19,3? If the house edge stays reasonably close to the norm, we'll make more money when turnaround achieves N series, EOS, is what? Here's a blackjack target betting example, starting out with a spurious LTD of 19,3, minus 3, 22,3, plus 4.5, BJ, plus 4, minus 5, 22,5, minus 10, 32,5, plus 5, plus 6, minus 7, 30,7, plus 7, plus 8, minus 10, 27,10, minus 10, 37,10/2, minus 5, 42,5, minus 5, 47,5, plus 5, 43,8, plus 12, BJ, minus 10, 42,10, plus 10, 31,12, plus 12, 20,14, plus 14, 7,8 TA, minus 8, 15,8, plus 16, EOS. Of course, target betting increases the risk that a runaway house edge will push the turnaround bet into what I call brown trouser territory, and the potential exposure disqualifies it from the repertoire of a conservative player. It's just another wrinkle in the turnaround technique, an example of how the system can be customized to suit the personality of the person who's using it. The absolute minimum required to beat a pendulum that refuses to swing your way is 100 units. My greatest success has been with a 500-unit bank, but the real objective of turnaround is to keep building your stash by adding to it after every winning session, splitting the take down the middle and extracting only half of your winnings as true profit. Do this, test turnaround thoroughly at your home casino, and don't even think of backing it with a thin dime until you have learned the rules upside down and inside out. Without money management, the only allies the gambler has are luck and intuition, and neither of those is reliable. One of turnaround's great strengths is that it is virtually undetectable, and therefore unlikely to attract casino heat. The bad news is that the martingales, the D'Alemberts, the Laboucheries and all the other traditional methods touted in countless gambling textbooks are doomed to lose. The good news is that turnaround is a winner, for those who are willing to work at it. We've had people complain that the rules are too complicated, or impossible to learn. Baloney. We've learned them, and neither of us doesn't pretend to be a genius. If you're looking for a simple way to beat the casinos, get used to this simple fact: there isn't one.